Well, I've decided, you know what? It drives. I pried that fender out a little bit last night, so it's not hitting the tire. And so if I go around this side, if I just look like this side of the car, it's still beautiful. So Op Delta K is still in motion. I'm on my way to the insurance agent. Just gonna look at it a little bit. We're gonna do some stuff. I got a great insurance agent. There's my other boat, the Lincoln. So we're gonna continue this process. I've got my little setup inside that I'm trying there. Runs like a top. There's the town car. I just got to show off this thing. That's beautiful. It's a 97. There's no rust. My dad bought it new. This is Tucker's car. This one's going away today. So, you know, the week we had was this and that. So, I guess excrement happens. There's the neighbor. Say hi. You like what I've done with it?
Morning kiss. Look at that.
That was Dawn, our neighbor. She's a sweetheart and a little boy. So I guess as an introduction to this is my second attempt at doing a drive-in video. We'll see how this one goes. The last one didn't go too well. It was pretty much a fail because of equipment problems. I bought a new recorder here, so we're trying that. I've got some towels and whatnot holding down the tripod a little better so it doesn't fall all over the place. And it's taped to the floor mat because, you know, it's here at Op Delta K. We have the nothing but the best in technology. You know, I used real masking tape. So anyway, with this crash that we've had, it was a major setback. The day it happened, I was pretty devastated. I'm not gonna lie. My kid was fine. I think he was more upset than I was, and as a father, you just hate to see that. So, you know, the car was smashed. All my plans for the next month went out the window. My son was really upset, and that was the worst part of it, was seeing my son upset, because I love my kids more than anything in the world, and I hate to see him upset. But anyway, we're gonna move forward. So I'm not sure what's gonna happen. It's tricky with old cars. So if you've ever had an old car, one of the things you have to think about is, you know, I talked about in previous things, is how you get parts, where do you get parts, and I was mostly talking about basically when you've got something going on, like you know, the carburetor needs to be rebuilt, or you need a tie rod end. All that stuff's pretty easy available. A quarter panel for a 4-door. You know, these cars were used up and thrown away, or running demo derbies, and there just aren't that many of them. So finding one that is A, straight, and B, not full of rust is really difficult. I think I've got a line on one thanks to some of the guys in the Oldsmobile groups I'm in. There's one in Arizona at Valley. There's a junkyard down there that specializes in it. There was a reality show about them and everything too, but it's like something Valley Auto Parts down outside of Phoenix. But I'm sure that, you know, a quarter panel is going to cost me, I'm guessing, minimum $1,000, and then probably another $500 to get it up here, because you're basically shipping a quarter of a car that weighs a few hundred pounds. So Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll be bringing this car up to St. Francis Collision and Joe's Hot Rod Shop. Joe Tillman up there. He's going to have a look at it and see what we can do, because, like I said, with old cars, insurance companies don't necessarily know what to do with them, because how do you find comparables and things like that? So I was online last night looking at basically anything GM 4-door from 65 to 75 to try to get pricing for this to give to the insurance company and say, this is what this car's worth. With such low miles at 28,000 original miles, that helps the value quite a bit. It's, you know, it's not a $12,000 car by any stretch of the imagination, but it does have value, and it still runs like a top. I mean, nothing mechanically seemed to happen. I'll make sure of that today, but so I'm going to find the parts, I'm going to price the parts, I'm going to find how much it's going to cost to get the parts here, how much it's going to cost to put the parts on. I'll probably save the insurance company some money by painting it myself, and I'll you know, they can buy the paint, but I'll take care of the labor, and that's just, to me, that's just being a good person. I was going to paint it anyway, so they can pay for the paint for the part of it that got hit in the back, but I'll pay the rest, or we'll figure that all out and we'll see how it goes. You know, yeah, I should get paid for my time, I guess, but it's my car and I want to do it the way I want, when I want, and how I want. So that's why you do have insurance, and they're good about it. We'll have to see how that goes. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm on that ride to the insurance company. Go in, say hi to Bailey. So here we are, Mike Orn's office, his palatial office. I keep this place in business. There's Bailey over here. She's going to help us today. And it's early. And look, Mike's not here. Another normal thing at Mike Orn's office. Anyway, this will be fun. Talk to you later. Driving this thing's a blast. So some of the looks you get from people as you drive by them have been pretty funny. First is these silly lights we have in Minnesota. These things. Getting on the highway. See, the highway's moving good, but they put these lights up here, I suppose, because people do have merging problems here. I'm from Massachusetts originally. I find that merging is different out there because everyone's aggressive. Out here it's a little different. So eventually we'll get up to that light. We'll get my commute going. There is one cool thing about these lights, because you know you have to get up to speed to get into traffic. So it's a little wet out. This could be dicey. Go! Still spinning. Yeah, okay, now we got traction. We're going 50. What is the love I have for old cars? Why do I have it? A little bit of my story is I grew up, like I said, in the past. I grew up in Boston, moved out here to Minneapolis to go to school, and ended up staying because I love it. But when I was little, my folks had a plan to go cross country with all the kids. So I was a baby, and I had 4 brothers and sisters. I still do, of course. Both my parents are still around. But it was 1969. My dad bought a 1969 Chrysler Town and Country wagon, and with air conditioning. Oh, that was a good deal. So we had an 18-foot Shasta trailer that we pulled, and 7 of us jumped in that station wagon and drove from Boston to all the way across country to the West Coast, down through California, and then back through the southern United States, back up to Massachusetts. My parents were both teachers, so they could do that. Like I said, I was 9 months old, so you know we had 3 across in the front, 3 across in the back, and then there was a playpen in the way back. You know, if you know the way back station wagons, there's a way back, and what we did was I was in the playpen in the back, so we went on that travel. So that was 1969. We had lots of trips and things we took. I think we went to Cape Cod, and we'd take stuff and go down and do day trips and things like that with it. But in 1971, 72, and 73, my dad was working in the summers. He worked in Fairbanks, Alaska, doing the Fairbanks Summer Arts Festival, music festival. My dad's like an unbelievable musician, composer, arranger. He's brilliant. But so they hired him to come up and do that for the summer. So we all came up. They rented a house and the whole bit. So we drove up. So 1971, I was 3 years old, and all my brothers and sisters, which are further apart. You're like this. So imagine this trip. 5,000 miles one way from Boston to Fairbanks. I think 1,400 miles of that was the Alcan Highway, which was gravel. At one point, we did take a ferry to skip some of it. I can't remember exactly the detail. In a station wagon with me at 3 years old, and so my brothers and sisters, like I said, they're a lot older. So I was 3. I think we had a 12 and a 13-year-old, and then like a 16 and a 17-year-old or something like that. So maybe I was 2.5, somewhere in there. But anyway, long story short is 2 teenagers, 2 junior high age kids, and a toddler in a station wagon driving 5,000 miles across country. It's epic, right? Maybe I can get together with everybody and we can tell stories about that trip, because I don't remember a lot of it, but I can just totally imagine what that was like. But you did stuff like that back then. But that's growing up. So we did that in 1971 and 72 with the car. And then 73, my dad bought a motorhome. So we had a motorhome to drive up there. In 73, we did it that time. And then after that, we didn't drive up again. But we had the motorhome for quite a while. We bought a new house. We moved. And we sold the motorhome and he put in a pool. So the traveling was kind of done. But we had a pool to swim in. So I guess that was okay. Appreciated that. I had a great upbringing. Awesome family, great parents. Brothers and sisters are all amazing. But I was the only one that came out of it as a car lunatic, because I'm a nut. So we added up all the cars I've had since we've been married, my wife and I. And I've had 43 cars since we've been married. We've been married, it'll be 20 years in 2020, actually. We got married in 2000. So, you do the averages, I'm doing better than 2 cars a year. I've had like 7 this year. It's a disease. But most of the cars I buy, I liked old cars, because I would buy old cars and I'd drive it for a while and sell it, and they don't really depreciate unless you keep up on them and things like that. So most of the cars I was buying, I could buy a car and then I could drive it for a while and usually make a little bit of money on it. So if you buy a car for, say you buy an old car for $2,500 and drive it for a year or two, and keep up on it, do the maintenance and things like that, you can usually get that same $2,500 for it. Now, if you get into classic cars, a lot of times they've appreciated in value, even though your mileage gets higher. If the car's still in nice shape, you actually don't lose money. So from a financial standpoint, it can be good. It's a gamble, though, because you can also have something happen, like you get in an accident and can't find parts, and then your value, because this car is not worth very much if it's all dented up. I mean, it's just not. It's not. And so it's really interesting how that all works. But anyway, my love for old cars comes from that. It's these drives across country, these cruising around, and just being in the car. I remember being little and sitting in the way back in the old Chrysler station wagon. And I remember the night he sold it. I remember it was, I'm thinking 1978. I was thinking the year it was. I must have been 9 years old, and I just cried like a little baby because I was so upset to see that car go. And it's one of my bucket list cars. So if anyone out there has a medium blue 69 Chrysler Town and Country wagon, let me know, because that's a car I want to have in my stable. I just want one of those bad. High school age, and I couldn't have a car, and I looked at a bunch of cars. My parents just said, "You're not going to buy a car." So when I got out of high school, because I bought a car, my first car I bought, it was in 1986, and it was an 84 Toyota pickup. So it was only 2 years old. I got a good deal on it and things. That ended up getting totaled because I got broadsided by a drunk, which was terrible. So I was crushed there, and I know that feeling as of recently too. But after that, I went and bought my 1971 Cutlass, and that is a whole story unto itself. All right, let's talk about the Cutlass. This is the car that put me in crazy car land. So my first truck had been totaled, and it was June 9th, 1987, pretty much a day that'll live in infamy in my mind. So June 9th, 1987, the truck got totaled. I got a check for it for more than I paid for the truck, which was good. And so I took that check, and it's middle of June now, end of June 1987. I'm getting ready to go to college out here in Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And, you know, in my mind, I'm like, well, I need a car. I actually didn't, because I was flying out to go to college and couldn't do anything with it anyway. And so, without even consulting my parents or asking them, my parents were taking care of my college bill and paying for college back then. This was one of the most selfish moves I ever made in my life. I started looking for a car, and I wanted an old muscle car. And an old, you know, they were pretty cheap back then. So, long story short, I found a place in called Mean Machine Motors in Massachusetts. A little shady dealership. It closed soon after I bought this car. But so I went there and I found this 1971 Cutlass Supreme, 68,000 original miles on it. He wanted $5,000 for it, and I offered him $3,800. He laughed at me because I'm just some punk kid. But then I walked out the door and, you know, flashed the cash behind me, did one of these, you know, hey, $3,800 right now. So I ended up buying the car, but I didn't have a way to get it home. So, side note, I needed a way to get it home. My mom's like, I am not having anything to do with this. I'm not doing it. No, I'm not doing this. Your father's going to kill you. I'm like, all right, well, I'll find a ride somehow to get the car. So my mom had a friend, Sue Scribner, and this woman was like one of the coolest human beings I ever met. She was awesome. She, in 1970 or 69 or whatever, had bought a Olds Rally 350, a muscle car, bright yellow with a wing and a 4-speed. She had glass packs on it. My mom would sulk down in it when she rode in it, and I would be in the back seat riding around this car, just grinning ear to ear. It was fast, it was loud, it was bright yellow, it was super cool. Anyway, so I find this Cutlass, which was a very similar body style to a 70 Cutlass. The 80 or 71 Cutlass is, you know, pretty much the same. A little different. Mine was a Supreme, hers was a fastback. I'm getting into the weeds a little bit. I know people that are purists are going to be like, they're different. All right, they're different. But for the story, they're the same car. So I went to pick this Cutlass up. I called her and I said, hey, I've got a problem. I just bought a 71 Cutlass Supreme. I need to go pick it up. My mom won't give me a ride. My dad doesn't know I bought it. And she's like, your dad doesn't know? Oh, he's going to freak out. I would be right over. So she thought that was funny. And she gave me a ride to pick up this car. And we got there. And when I got my Cutlass, it was a 350 cubic inch motor, just a 2-barrel. But it had dual exhaust and it had glass packs on it. So it sounded just like her old car. And I'm like, you want to drive it? And she's like, yes. So we went for a little drive. And she was like, I just really miss my old car, because she got rid of her car in the late 70s as it was getting a little bit old, and she sold it for like $800. I know. A 4-speed hardtop W31 Rally 350. I know. So, and then she bought the car she bought was a Fiat X19. And then a few years later, she came to her senses and got a Mustang GT 5-speed again. But that Rally 350, that Cutlass she had, just really made me want one of those things in the worst way. So I got one. So I bought that car. I drove it home, and I hid it for a couple days. Tried to hide it, you know. When you're 17, all right, all you 17-year-olds out there, your parents know. I mean, we know. We've done it before. So you're not going to hide stuff. But so I like parked it down, you know, kind of around the corner, or try to out of the way. But you know, I'd go and start it up in the morning and back it into the driveway and drive out to go to work. My parents' bedroom was right above the driveway, and here's this car with glass packs. It's summertime. They're both school teachers. They're both home. You know, so after a couple days of just not eating and freaking out and not knowing what's going to happen when Fast Eddie finds out what his son did, I'm sitting there at dinner, and I said, Dad, after dinner, you want to go for a ride? He's like, why would I go for a ride? I'm like, so you can see my new car. And he just dropped his fork, just, what? I'm like, uh-oh. So we went for a ride. He came out, and he drove it. Of course, when he went to start the car, it didn't start on the first try, and he kind of looked at me, and then it did fire up, and it's really loud. And he's like, well, it needs an exhaust. I'm like, no, Dad, that's performance exhaust. You know, trying to sell him on this thing, and he was pretty angry. And after driving it around, we went on a coach lane where we lived. We took a left on Clabber Tree Street. We just made a big loop around by the high school and came back down and in. And I think he realized the car wasn't a complete piece of crap. It was beautiful. I mean, it was a gorgeous car. And he's like, well, I suppose if you take care of it, it'll last you a long time. I had it 20 years, so he was right. But I'll never live that down. To add insult to injury, right after I got the car, I thought, hey, I should probably find parts for this car, so I could have parts if I need them. And I had a friend whose parents had a 71 Cutlass 4-door that was just beat to hell. I bought it for $100. It ran and drove. The frame was broken. I mean, but I was going to use it for parts. So I get the car. Again, I didn't tell my folks about it. Here's this brown, this thing was a piece of crap. It should have just gone to the crusher. But I bought it thinking I could use some parts off it. I ended up using some parts off it, so that was good, but another jerk thing to do to your parents. Don't do that to your parents. But so they found out when I had that car, because I took it down. We lived on a dead-end road. So I took the car at the end of the dead-end road, just started doing donuts with it, because I was, you're 17. What else are you going to do? And so I'm rolling back up to the driveway to pull the car in, and it's all full of smoke, the smoke bowl coming out of the back and stuff. And I pull it in. My parents are like, what's this? Look, it's my parts car. Yeah, I had to get rid of that. It sat for a while, though. They weren't real happy about that. And my car sat when I went to school. End of August, I went to college, flew out there. And the car sat, and then I met the only other like motorhead in art school in Minneapolis. My friend Corey, you'll meet him later. We're gonna do some stuff with him in his garage. But it was just fun. It was just fun. By spring break, I had lost my mind and I needed to have that car with me. I just had to have it. I couldn't live without it. So I flew back home, and a friend flew with me because my mom didn't want me to drive alone. My friend Mitch at the time. I don't even know what happened to Mitch. I lost touch with him. But we flew out, and we jumped in my Cutlass. I turned the key and drove it 1,400 miles to Minnesota. I didn't even think about it. It made it. It did just fine. But so that's the story of the Cutlass. Like I said, I had it for 20 years. That's how I got it. That's my first year of ownership, was doing that. And I drove that car back and forth 10 times from Minneapolis to Boston. Just learned to love being on the road and driving. That's what got me into old cars. I still get a kick out of going to gas station with these things, and every time you fill up, someone says, wow, what is that? How old is that car? And it brings up conversation. You get to talk to people. Oh, my uncle had one of those. Oh, I remember growing up in one of those. Oh, I've seen these somewhere. Oh, is that the one like in that TV show? I enjoy that. I enjoy being able to talk to people, and old cars bring that out. It's Americana. It's the muscle car era was a time of great turmoil in the country, but it was also a time of great prosperity. And I kind of focus on, I'm not focusing on the Vietnam War and a lot of the other troubles. We all know about that stuff, but what was going on in industry and cars and just general day-to-day, people's general work. There was a lot of people that weren't then involved in a lot of the movements, that were just trying to exist and live their lives. And I think that these cars and those times and those travels that we did was a different time, and it was an interesting time. So we'll talk more about the Cutlass later. I've got countless stories about my Cutlass. And most of the people that you're going to meet will have stories about my Cutlass too, because they knew me back when. So that's it for the Cutlass story. Until the next segment. A little journey for the journey. I can't resist. I can't resist. I did right away was go online to see if I can find another old car in the off chance that this accident ends up taking this car away from me and I can't use it anymore. And to make a long story short, I found a 1972 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme.
Proceed to the route.
That's just like the one I had.
Turn left onto Center Drive, then turn right onto South Carmichael Road.
And it was, the price is right. It needs work. It doesn't run. Or maybe it runs, but it needs some carb work, some brake work, whatever. Anyway, I'm going to look at it.
Turn right onto South Carmichael Road.
I don't know what I'm doing to get there, but I'm going to go look at it. So, I might have an option. So if they end up doing something with this car, then at least the guts of this, the engine and transmission will find their way.
Turn right to merge onto US 12 East.
The engine and transmission will find their way into a Cutlass, and I can make a Cutlass SX or something really cool out of it. I don't want to necessarily do that. We'll see. And I might just buy the car to fix it up. We'll see what happens. So that's where we're going right now. We're going to look at a 72 Cutlass.